Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Mrs. Smith 88. So today is the long-awaited video on how I paid my house off in 355 days. So yes, I have notes. Do I feel like I'm going to be composed during this video? Absolutely not. I feel like I'm going to be all over the place, so I do apologize in advance. There is a little bit of an order I want to go through, but I feel like other things coincide with each other, so it's just going to kind of be all thrown out there on how I paid my house off in 355 days. So number one is I saved an epic down payment. So how did I save the epic down payment? So when COVID hit, my commission-based job tanked. I do apologize if you guys hear thunder in the background. We are starting to get storms. So my commission-based job ended up tanking, my income was dropping, and I decided to seek out a second job. This is going to play into it. Yes, I had 2 jobs. So I sought out a second job, and it was nothing major. Literally, I was working as a remote customer service agent, making $12 an hour, and I decided to restructure our budget. So my husband and I, we sat down and we talked about it, and one of the things that we did is we decided to live strictly on his income. So he works maintenance for a gear company in Cleveland, Ohio, and he works a lot of overtime. Like, we're talking, he's working, I wouldn't say 12 hours, he's working 10.5-hour days plus Saturday. So he's easily putting in 55-ish hours a week, and he brings in, before taxes, about $85,000–$90,000 per year. So relatively good income for living here in Northeast Ohio. My first job that was tanking, the year that it started tanking, so let's see here. See, I already feel like I'm getting off track. 2020, I think I made $25,000. Now, generally speaking, I would typically make $35,000 to $40,000 at that job. So that was a significant cut, and why I picked up the second job. So the second job, remote customer service agent, making $12 an hour. Within weeks, the company noticed my potential, and I did get promoted. I got promoted up to lead supervisor, where I was making between $16 to $18 an hour. And like I said, husband and I, we sat down, decided to restructure our budget, live off of his income, and then the income that I was making from being a remote customer service agent, we saved every penny of that. Like, did not spend a single penny from my second job. The money I was making from my first job was our spending money. That was money where I was able to shop and still do my YouTube hauls. That was money we were able to go to the casino or have nights out and that kind of stuff. Whereas his income, it paid the utilities, it paid our groceries and that kind of stuff. The house we were living in, I bought in 2018 at the time for $65,000. I bought it out cash, so that house was paid off. We had no mortgage, so we had a good bit of extra money to save. So in the course of a year, I want to say that I saved up between $52,000 and $54,000. I would have to look back at my savings to see the exact number. We ended up going through Third Federal Bank and loan to get our home loan, and they did several promotions. I didn't know that I didn't have to put 20% down on our house. I only needed to technically put 15% down to avoid PMI. I was a stickler that I wanted to have this big down payment to avoid PMI, because I feel like when you go into buying a house and you don't have that big down payment and you're paying PMI, you're giving away free money. I didn't want to give away free money. So I wanted to save, and luckily things worked out, timing worked out, and all that kind of stuff, because the market was starting to get hot. And we're going to get to that in a minute. So the loan company we went through, different promotions and that kind of stuff. I did put the full 20% down. I wasn't required to put 20% down. I only technically needed to put 15% down. This same bank and loan institute, if you can finance through them, I've seen promotions where you only have to put 5% down to avoid PMI. Definitely, if you can avoid paying PMI on a home loan, definitely do so, because don't give away that free money. The other thing was our housing budget. So when we got our home loan, we were pre-approved for nearly $500,000 because between my husband's income and my income, so my income, I make about $75,000-$85,000. He makes about $85,000-$90,000. So we together make about $160,000 or a little bit more before taxes each year. So we were pre-approved for up to $400,000. I was adamant I was not going to buy a $400,000 house. I was not going to buy a $300,000 house. I was not going to buy a $250,000 house because of a few reasons. One, my husband is older. My husband is 25 years older than me. He is 58 years old. Typical home loan is 30 years. I did not want us to be strapped to a 30-year mortgage because the odds of him being alive in 30 years that would put him at 88 is most likely not likely. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen. It very well could, but is he going to be working at 88? No. And that's one of the things that I thought about. Not only that, I wanted to make sure it was a house that we could afford on one income. Because what if a spouse passed away? What if a spouse got injured and could no longer work and that kind of stuff? I had all these thoughts in my head that I just did not want to live beyond my means, and I knew that I could get a nice house on a relatively low budget. So what was my budget? That's going to be the next question you guys are going to ask. My initial budget when buying my house was $150,000. And I say initial because housing prices in Ohio are relatively affordable. They are in line with our economy and what people typically make and that kind of stuff. I know other states are much higher, but they also have higher paying wages where Ohio just doesn't. We're not one of those states that typically pay like $18-$25 an hour like New York. Our minimum wage, I think, is like right around like $7.75 and that kind of stuff. So that is why housing is more affordable in Ohio. So initial budget was $150 or $150,000. And like I said, housing market was starting to get hot. You guys have seen it firsthand. Like, the housing market has blown up. And I just wasn't finding anything at $150,000. I told my husband, I'm like, I think I'm going to have to bump our budget up and that kind of stuff. And he is like, well, what do you want to bump it up? And we saw this house that was $200,000. And that really got the ball rolling and got him thinking that, hey, you know what? We can get a lot nicer housing options if we go ahead and bump our budget up. And the $200,000 house, we were late to the game. Totally missed that house. I do believe that everything happens for a reason. I did end up raising our budget up to $180,000. And so that kind of put us in a new price range, obviously, gave us new options and that kind of stuff. And the house that we actually bought was listed at $189,000. So it wasn't even on my radar. And then the price dropped. The price dropped from $189,000 to $170,000. And we had looked at a total of, I think, 4 houses. We even bidded on, I want to say 2. Probably 2 of them. One of them was a house that was listed at $130,000. We maxed out our original budget of $150,000. We did not get accepted on that house, and I think that everything happens for a reason, because looking back, would have I been happy in that house? No. So our house was listed at $189,000, dropped down to $170,000. We came and looked at it, and I put in an offer at full ask, $170,000. And I was transparent with my husband and my realtor. I'm like, I am mentally exhausted. This market is crazy. I don't know if I can go through with buying a house. If our offer does not get accepted on this house, I think I'm gonna have to take a break from looking at houses. We got the news our offer was accepted. I was over the moon because I was so over looking at houses. And like I said, we went in full ask, $170,000. We did do no inspection on the house. And I know that's risky for a lot of people. My husband's an electrician by trade. The house had a new roof on it. The house had a new AC and that kind of stuff. My cousin does HVAC work and that kind of stuff. We saw that there was a lot of cosmetic work, like the carpet needed ripped out. Our kitchen is dated as can be. I have a house video up of what our house looked like, but got our house for $170,000. I do apologize, this is going to be a long video. Like I said, put 20% down, so 17 times 2, 34,000. I put 34,000 down. That means we financed a total of $136,000. I did keep both of my jobs, and we essentially lived like we lived when we were saving for the house. We lived strictly on my husband's income. Everything that I made at my second job as the remote customer service agent, which is actually now operations manager. So I'm now an operations manager for that company, making that full $48,000, $48,000 a year from there. Did I say 48 or 58 at the start of the video? 48,000. So if for some reason I said $48,000 a year as a operations manager, and I put that whole income on our loan. We lived strictly off of my husband's income. My husband's income has paid our utilities, bought our groceries, paid our cell phone bill and that kind of stuff. My commission-based job that I still have is still my spending money, like I said, and every penny I made as an operations manager went onto my house. So we got the house down to $96,000 this past May. Technically, I might have paid it off in April, May, somewhere in there. So anyways, we got the house down to $96,000, and like I said at the start of the video, I bought my first house in 2018 for $65,000. Bought it out cash, lived in it, only paid taxes, utilities, etc. And we were on the fence after we bought this house whether we were going to sell that house or we were going to rent that house. So we just sat on it for 10 months. And in a way, I'm glad that we sat on it because the housing market got hotter and hotter and hotter. And it came to a point that my boss, who's my best friend, just kind of gave me a wake-up call. She's like, Heather, you're throwing money away paying utilities at this house. You're throwing money away paying taxes at this house that you don't even live in. Just sell it and be done with it. And she was right. I just needed to sell it and be done with it. I didn't want to go through the hassle of renting it because it needed so much work. And it's just a house that I wouldn't have felt comfortable renting out because it was over 100 years old. The floors needed replacement. I didn't want to be a slumlord. So we listed that house, and the realtor and I, we went back and forth and that kind of stuff. I did my research and comps in the area of houses similar. She wanted to list my house at $89,900. I'm like, no. I'm like, hey, look, I'm like, these houses are all comparable, and I think we should list at $105. She's like, oh, I don't know if that's a good idea. I'm like, I really want to list at $105. She was like, okay, I'm going to let you have your way. We're going to list at $105. But if we don't get any movement or any word within the first week, we are dropping the price down to $99,900. I'm like, fair. I'll shake on it with you. That's fine. Within 24 hours, we had multiple offers, and we had offers as high as $120,000 on that house. I ended up accepting an offer of $115,000, and you guys are probably like, well, why didn't you take the $120,000 offer? The $120,000 offer, the person was not conventional. They were FHA. They wanted me to pay their closing costs, and with them being FHA, I knew most likely they were maxing out their FHA loan, and if something came back on the inspection, they would want to go ahead and negotiate house prices, whereas the conventional person was not looking to make any negotiations. Like, they were like $115,000, I'll pay my own closing and that kind of stuff. So it just seemed stress-free and the right choice to make. I accepted the $115,000. We went through the 30-day close. After my realtor's fees and after their realtor fees, I ended up walking away with $104,000. I was able to pay off the $96,000 balance on my house, which happened to be a year before my initial loan payment was due. So I was able to pay off my house in 355 days by changing my budget, saving a lot of money, working 2 jobs, not picking a house beyond my means. Like I said, $170,000 for our house, and we got a reasonable house. Our house is 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and like 2,300 square feet. Like, it is a significant upgrade from what I had. I'm very happy with my choices. So definitely, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. I think I covered everything. I do apologize that I was a little all over the place, but thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe. Bye, everyone.